Hello everybody, my name is Byrnage and this is my review for Athena on the NES. The basic story of this game is that Athena is bored so she goes on an adventure. Why even have a story if it's gonna be that lame? This game is a medieval platformer. It feels a lot like the early Mario games. You move right, you destroy blocks for power-ups, and there are secrets to skip ahead. Except in this game, at the end of each stage is a different boss. There are many blocks to destroy, but only some weapons can destroy them. Enemies will often drop the type of weapon they're holding. You won't get weapons from blocks very often, so this is really your best bet. You can also upgrade your weapon. If an enemy normally drops a mace and you already have a mace, then it will drop a level 2 mace. The weapons are as follows. Maces are good at destroying blocks, but bad for fighting bosses. The third and final mace can destroy a pile of blocks in an instant, but has a bit of a wind-up, so it's awkward to fight with. It also can't destroy blocks below you, which is a huge problem in some situations. Other weapons you can just crouch and destroy blocks beneath you. Swords are good for fighting bosses, but not as good at destroying blocks. The third sword shoots beams out, good for taking out enemies from a range. The sword also has 4 levels, ending with the flame sword. Picking up a flame sword will fill your health. It also destroys all blocks it touches, and it's the hardest hitting weapon in the game. Sounds OP, but it hurts you every time you swing it. Thankfully, once low enough, it will revert back to the level 3 sword, so you can't kill yourself with it. Bows suck at everything, but they are ranged so they can be necessary in some situations. Magic, just like the bow, also sucks at everything. Upgrade either of these weapons and there's still a force to be reckoned with though. It's just surviving to get them upgraded that's the problem. Destroying blocks will yield a ton of different power-ups. There are 3 levels of helmets. These will reduce damage from above, and with a helmet you can jump to destroy blocks above you. Good thing there isn't a brain cell meter. Like once you run out of brain cells you get game over because you're a vegetable now. There are 3 levels of body armor and it reduces damage from behind. There are also 3 levels of shield that reduce damage from the front. Other various power-ups include mirrors, which will strengthen your armor so it won't break as fast, because that's a thing I didn't mention yet. Take enough damage and your armor will downgrade, or if it was level 1 already, it will be destroyed. There are crowns that will upgrade your armor or increase your defense. There are rings that will upgrade your weapon or increase its damage. There's a power-up that lets you see hidden power-ups. I noticed it doesn't show you all the power-ups though, so it doesn't feel all that useful. And lastly, there's an hourglass that will reset your timer. Yep, I didn't mention it before, but there is a time limit. Thankfully enough, there are enough hourglasses placed around that if you want to destroy every block in the game, you won't run out of time. There are a couple items that are bad. The red demon claw looking thing will downgrade your weapon. It can actually be useful if you have the flame sword but want to stop hurting yourself. The red skull will downgrade all of your armor. And lastly, there is a red hourglass looking thing that will rapidly deplete your time as you stand on it. Not to be confused with the actual red hourglass that destroys all the enemies on screen. Another thing you will run into that you'll want to collect are the red flowers. If you destroy them, they will drop hearts to heal you. Some of them will drop a single large heart that will extend your life total. I never saw a cap to this. That bar gets so long. Now let's get into stage layout and how you actually make it through this game. Each stage is made up of an upper and a lower level. Jump into a pit and you drop down to the lower level. From there you can usually climb ladders or vines to get back up to the first level, or you can just jump up if you have a high enough platform. If you're already on the bottom level and you fall in a pit, you'll be sent back to the start of the level, usually naked. Not naked, just without equipment. Don't want people jumping in pits just to try to get a peek at Athena here. Upon getting reset, your timer, however, stays the same. This is the most common way to run out of time. Run out of time and you die. Die and you start back at the beginning. Naked. Or equipmentless, or whatever you want to call it. There is, however, a slate which has the letter K on it that you collect, and this will let you keep your equipment on death. Once you run out of lives, the game is over. Thankfully, there is a continue function that lets you start back at the beginning of the stage that you got game over on. And if you collected a K on your last life, you will even continue with your equipment. No matter what though, you lose all health upgrades on game over and go back to base health, which can be pretty devastating. There are 8 different worlds to play through. One of these doesn't have a boss, which means there are 7 mostly unique bosses. I'm looking at you, Octopus, which is basically just the tree boss underwater. So how good is this game? There are some minor issues in functionality that can be frustrating. Like, what the hell's wrong with the flower hitbox? Sometimes I just can't hit it, and I waste so much precious time. Also, sometimes enemies will clip into your character and just delete your health bar. There are also situations where you can softlock yourself if you aren't careful. Get to a point where you have to destroy blocks to proceed and you don't have a weapon that can destroy blocks and you're stuck. Enjoy waiting out the timer so you can die and try again. All of these issues won't happen a lot, but when they do, they can be really annoying. Not enough to influence my overall opinion of the game though. What does influence my overall opinion of the game is how it gets increasingly unfair and unfun the further you get. I started out really loving this game, but some of the later levels can be brutally unfair. I noticed this a lot with games that were ported from arcade, which Athena is one of those games. Arcade games were designed to get you hooked and then become near impossible, so you spend a ton of money trying to finish it. And some of that design definitely translates when ported to console. Once you get to the final world, if you get game over, it's almost certainly game over. The final world is a boss rush of sorts. You start out in the forest against the first boss, you go through a couple screens of enemies, and then you fight the second boss, and so on. And even if you die on the game's final boss, you start over back at the forest and have to kill every boss again. And if you didn't manage to get a K to save your equipment, now you're fighting a tree in hand-to-hand combat. And then if you get game over, you also gotta do it with a tiny health bar. I thought it was impossible at first, but it can actually be done. However, there seems to be a bit of RNG for getting any further than that. Enemies at this point will mostly be single spawns, so you can't farm for weapons. And if they don't drop a weapon, you can't destroy any blocks to get power-ups and get on your feet. I found it better to just start the whole game over at this point. The amount of health upgrades you get by the end of the game is just insane. You have like quadruple a starting health bar. Starting from nothing just feels like a pointless struggle. I was pretty disappointed after starting over. Some of the levels are pretty tough and I didn't want to do them again. In the end, it was easier the second time though, and I actually made it all the way back to where I was without having to continue. Overall, I like this game a lot. It can be stressful to try to beat, so I don't think a lot of people will share my opinion, which makes it really hard to recommend. It's pretty fun in the beginning regardless though, so I'd say it's worth a shot. Like the video and subscribe, and I might just be able to hook you up with how to see Athena naked. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.